Friends, in a certain city, a politician was running for office, and he advertised for volunteer workers. There were so many young women appeared for the job, volunteers, that there was a near riot. Were they interested in politics? No, the first question they asked was, how many men have appeared? They were part of the lonely young women of this great city. And then I know of an old woman who stays up every night until 12 o'clock to hear the announcer say, "We are now signing off. Good night, and have a good sleep." That relieves her of her loneliness. There was really and truly, a woman wrote to me and told me that my program was the only one to which her cat ever listened. So our subject tonight has to do, to some extent, with loneliness. It affects all ages. Children are lonely. 5 million of them belong to divorced parents in this country. Boys get lonely. That's why they join gangs, because they get power which they do not individually have. Young girls are lonely when they get a pimple on the nose. Older girls are more lonely still when the boy treats them as a glass, throws the glass aside after he has taken the drink. They find then that they're just a replaceable part in the great erotic IBM machine. Their loneliness increases. Then there's the loneliness of leadership, being the top man on the totem pole. There's the loneliness of being at the bottom of the totem pole, because you're just one of the masses. You're apt to lose your personality. The loneliness sometimes of marriage, where all the jokes have been told. There's no new event to narrate. And it's the terrible solitude of being alone together. And then even when it does remain fine and noble and rich, even in moments of greatest unity, there is a feeling of apartness after such an ecstasy. One hopes to completely submerge oneself, and yet one finds oneself back again. The hypochondriacs, of course, are lonely. And so we were asked to talk on this program about this subject of loneliness. And I'm going to give, after these facts, which we have just narrated, I'm going to give first the causes, and then I'm going to suggest some remedies. Now, I didn't know whether to use the blackboard or not. My angel is here, and I cannot think of any diagram that I could use. Just write causes on the board. So I'm afraid I will not be able to use my angel. But just before I came on the program, he wanted to know if I would play a game of golf with him tomorrow. And I told him that I was not old enough for golf because I play tennis twice a week. When I get old, I am going to play golf, and I'm going to have a wagon, too, to take me around from hole to hole. But he was telling me that the other day he was playing golf, and he drove off 225-yard hole it was, and the ball went right into the cup. And he looked up to heaven and he said, "Dear Lord, let me do this by myself." He's not a lonely angel, as you see. Now, what are the causes of loneliness? Well, one of the causes of loneliness has to do, first of all, with the lonely people themselves. And another reason why they are lonely is because of people who are not lonely. First of all, on account of the lonely themselves. They want to be loved too much. They want to love, to be loved. Now, there's nothing wrong about wanting to be loved, because we're all Stradivarius violins without bows. I didn't mean that pun. We are one of the difficulties of an unprepared, unscripted play. And we're cups without saucers. We are to be complimented. But the deep loneliness of which we are speaking comes from an excessive desire to be loved. The more I want to be loved, the less I am loved. The less I'm loved, the less lovable I become. The less lovable I become, the less I am capable of loving others. And that's how, by a desire to seek only oneself and to please oneself, one gets caught like a bird in a fowler's net. And the more one struggles to get out of this loneliness, the more one is captured by it. Just take some concrete examples of this desire to be loved. I know of a mother whose daughter was away at college. And she used to call up the daughter every night. Would keep the daughter on the phone for an hour and protested to the daughter that she was not appreciated as she should be. And because other girls in this college wanted to use the phone, she said to her mother, "Mother, I'm forbidden to use the phone anymore." One day, the superintendent had sent for her, and she was unable to answer the phone, and she told her mother, "Send someone to answer the phone for her." The mother said, "This is the end." And she refused to see her daughter again. Thus, by wanting too much to be loved without loving, one loses even the love that one seeks. And then there was a fiancée. She used to. I wonder if any of you young women in the audience ever do that. Do you know what she would do? She would write down in a book every time the boyfriend called how long he spoke. She also wrote down how often he wrote and how many words he wrote in each letter. She felt that she wasn't loved enough, so she began writing herself anonymous letters, threatening her. And she said that these letters came from a well-known author in the city. And finally, she was exposed by this man whom she blamed, and eventually the marriage was broken off. She just loved too much, loved to be loved. And then there was the wife who felt that her husband was paying no attention to her, insisted that he stay away from work. He wanted to go to a picnic, wanted to go to the beach, and he found excuses many times, and finally lost his job. The marriage broke up. So one of the principal reasons of loneliness, therefore, is this egotism which seeks only oneself. And you can already see the cure anticipated by the mere fact that we mention this cause. But then there's another cause of loneliness, and that's on the part of the people who are not lonely. They do not bring any love to these people. Do you know what we should do? We should really concentrate a great deal on certain types of people. We should concentrate on the unfortunate, on the poor, on the socially disinherited, on the unloved, particularly the unloved, and on the ugly. And we bring love to them. We put love into them. Then they become lovable. Now, for example, you are very lovable to God. Did you know that? You say, well, what is there in me to love? Nothing. But he put his love into you. That's why you're lovable. And that's what we have to do with other people. And so the loneliness of these people is increased also because the rest of us will not listen to them. Listening is a therapeutic. There was a psychologist who formulated a marriage case that involved sexual, financial, social, and legal complications. He went to 100 clergymen and 100 priests to present the story, and he carried a stopwatch with him. Do you know how long they listened? The average was 2.5 minutes. Then off-the-cuff answer. They refused to listen. They refused to care. George Bernard Shaw has something rather good on that subject. In his play St. Joan, King Charles says to Joan, "Why do not the voices come to me? I am the king." And Joan answers, "They do come to you, but you do not hear them. You have not sat in the field in the evening listening for them. You prayed from the bottom of your heart and listened to the thrilling of the bells and the trilling of them after they had stopped ringing. You would hear the voices, just as I do." In other words, listening is a therapeutic, a cure for lonely people. We do the same thing with our prayers. We wouldn't do to a doctor what we do to God. Would we go into a doctor and mumble off all of our symptoms and then say, "Bye, doctor"? Not listen. So listening on our part, refusal to listen, is one of the causes that intensifies this forsakenness. Now, what is a cure? Well, there are several cures, and we will just have time to mention one that is very important, namely caring for other people. When we're lonely, go out and serve. Then loneliness goes out through our fingertips. Our heart opens. The Chinese have a proverb: if you're without shoes, go out and find a man without any feet. Caring for others. I remember when I first went to Europe to study, to do my university work as a young priest. The first Christmas I was lonely. I was really lonesome. I think it was the only time in my life I was lonesome. What would I do? So I went to someone in the city of Louvain and asked for a list of the worthy poor. And I went to this particular alley. It was the wrong address, actually. I got into Rat Alley. And when the door opened, there, earthen floor, was a blind father at the stove. 10 children barefooted around the stove. Ladder leading up to the second floor. One bed upstairs, bed downstairs. The children slept crosswise. I asked the family what they had. This was Christmas Eve, what they had for dinner, and she opened a bag of straw. Children had no sabots, no wooden shoes. I took care of them for 4 years while I was studying at the university. Got them jobs, rehabilitated them. I felt at times perhaps they were drawing on me. But do you know that the day that I went up for my examination as a professor at that university, I went in at 9 o'clock to face 200 professors. I saw the whole family coming down the street. I asked them where they had been. They said, for the last 2 days, we've been at a shrine praying for you that you would pass the examination. We walked all the way back. I was never lonesome again. That's the cure. Helping the neighbor. But here's something to remember, too. We think we should not be lonely. In this age of psychiatry, there are 2 or 3 conclusions that our world has drawn which are false. One is that we should never have a tension. Certainly we have tensions. We must have them. We've got body and spirit, and they go in opposite directions. They have 2 different landing fields. Certain tensions are normal. If we didn't have them, we would be abnormal. And then we're lonesome. Sure, there's a metaphysical loneliness. Perfection is not here. This is not our home. I've got something that I want in my heart that nothing on this earth can satisfy, and nothing can satisfy you either. And we know it very well. So what's the cause of this loneliness? What are we looking for? Well, we say we're looking for God. Yes. Then I know what you will answer. What does God know about loneliness? Now that's a good question. That's a good question. What does he know about loneliness? Does he know anything about the loneliness, for example, of a babe in Afghanistan who has no better home than just straw? Does God know anything about the loneliness of a mother who has to gather up a child in order to escape a dictator and fly halfway across Africa? Does God know anything about the loneliness of a man that's born on the wrong side of the tracks? Who's isolated socially from people simply because his hands are calloused with common labor and is denied decent society? Sure, does God know anything about that kind of loneliness, for example, in which one is expelled from a city, disowned by one's own people? Does he know anything about the loneliness of being deserted by friends? Does he even know anything about the loneliness of feeling doubts even about religion, doubts even which one cries out, why hast thou abandoned me? Does God know anything about these things? Yes, those are good questions. Now suppose that there was a figure that came into all of this loneliness and so immersed himself in it that he would not immunize himself from it, would not cut himself off from it. Would you, for example, be the only one on the battlefield that was whole and not help any of the wounded? And so if there was a figure that came into this world of ours and refused to isolate himself from loneliness and felt it so much that blood poured out from his body, felt loneliness so much that as if all the robberies of the world were thrust into his hands, as if he himself were guilty, that felt all loathsome carnality so much that his flesh was hanging from him like purple rags. Suppose someone came into this world and went into all of this loneliness, took it all, was not overcome by it, but conquered it all. Then what? Then I may be lonely every now and then, but I'll not be overcome by it. Then I have a captain, kind of a captain who yet presses not a button in heaven from a celestial command. But I have a captain who stumbled to a throne.
Bishop Sheen will return in a moment.
Did that telecast seem a little short to you? Actually, I was just informed that we were 1 minute short. Now, I have a clock before me over there, and I keep my eyes on it. But this clock here was right. I finished 3 seconds before the time. But up in the control room, that celestial command that I just talked about, they figured it wrong by 1 minute. So they asked me if I could, instead of coming out for a very brief closing, come on and talk to you for a minute and a half. Now you are put to the test. If that telecast seemed very short, you are enjoying it. We would say time passed like anything. If you were not enjoying it, it seemed very, very long. As a matter of fact, this minute and a half will seem interminable to you. Now, I want to tell you, my good people, that I have to leave you now. Are you a bit lonely? I am. I'm lonely too. Bye now, and God love you.
In a world full of challenges, Pastor Fulton Sheen delivers a powerful message of hope and responsibility. He reminds us that we are not merely living in this world, but also its guardians. From the love of Pope John III to the connection between science and faith of Teilhard de Chardin and the courage of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, each demonstrates that this world is worth living in, worth loving, and worth saving. Let us together explore and cherish this priceless gift. In the modern era, human attention has never been more focused on the world than it is today. We live in a time where every aspect of life, from individual existence to societal development and the future of the planet, is deeply analyzed, debated, and cared for. In his sermon, Pastor Fulton Sheen observed that humanity has never been more profoundly concerned with the world than it is now, and this concern has led to significant changes in how we perceive ourselves and our role on this planet. The discovery and understanding of the world. Since ancient times, humans have always sought to understand the world around them. From ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Plato to modern scientists like Einstein and Darwin, the world has always been a subject of endless curiosity and study. However, Pastor Sheen emphasized that in the modern age, the world is not just an object of study, but a deep concern, a reality that humanity is striving to protect, improve, and live in harmony with. Throughout history, civilizations have developed based on their understanding of the world. But this development was often confined to specific geographical areas or certain social groups. Today, with the rapid advancement of science and technology, humanity has gained an unprecedented level of understanding of the world. We not only comprehend natural processes, but also have the ability to intervene in them, modifying them to serve the interests of humankind. However, this understanding comes with great responsibility. Pastor Sheen highlighted that never before in history has humanity faced global challenges like those we encounter today. Issues such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and environmental pollution are no longer the problems of a single nation or region, but are global concern. In this context, each individual has a role and a responsibility to protect and preserve this planet for future generations. The unity of humanity. One of the key points emphasized in Pastor Sheen's sermon is the awareness of the unity of humanity. He noted that humanity has begun to realize that we are not separate individuals, but rather part of a global community, a complex, interconnected network of social, economic, and environmental relationships. This means that the fate of each individual is closely tied to the fate of all humankind. Historically, people have often focused on personal concerns or the interests of smaller groups. However, with the growth of globalization and the interconnectedness between nations, we have come to understand that issues like poverty, inequality, and environmental crises do not just affect one nation, but can spread and impact the entire globe. Pastor Sheen emphasized that the inequality between wealthy and poor nations, particularly in terms of access to food and essential resources, is an issue that requires immediate attention. He cited United Nations projections that by the year 2000, food demand in Asia, Latin America, and Africa increase many times over, placing immense pressure on the global food system. In this context, Pastor Sheen called on everyone to clearly recognize their responsibility towards the world. He argued that our existence is not merely a coincidence, part of a larger plan that requires each person to contribute to making the world a better place for everyone. This necessitates not only a change in thinking but also in actions, from caring for the environment, fighting for social justice. The role of science and technology. One of the key elements that Pastor Sheen addressed is the role of science and technology in exploring and understanding the world. Over the past 100 years, humanity has witnessed remarkable advancements in science, from the discovery of DNA structure to the development of cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence and biotechnology. These advances not only open up new possibilities for understanding the world, but also raise new ethical questions about human responsibility. Sheen argued that scientific progress is not a threat to faith. On the contrary, it can be a powerful tool for humanity to better comprehend the complexities of the world and of God. He emphasized that science should not be separated from faith, but rather, they should be combined to contribute together to the development of the world. This requires close collaboration between scientists and theologians to ensure that scientific discoveries are used to benefit all of humanity, not just a select few. Prime example of this combination is how humanity has used scientific advancements to address global issues, from developing vaccines to combat diseases to applying technology to mitigate the impacts of climate change. However, Sheen also warned of the dangers of abusing science, where humans might use technology to control or manipulate nature, leading to unforeseen consequences. In this context, called for awareness and caution in applying science to real-life situations. Social engagement and the spirit of responsibility. One of the notable trends in the modern era is the social engagement of the youth. Pastor Sheen praised the enthusiasm and sense of responsibility of the younger generation in participating in social activities, from helping the poor to engaging in environmental protection movement. Finally, Pastor Sheen emphasized that this world, with all its beauty and challenges, is a place worth living in and worth loving. He urged everyone to cherish and protect this world, not just for their own benefit, for the benefit of all those around them. According to him, this world is a gift from God, and we must care for and protect it as part of our sacred duty. Great figures who contributed to humanity. Pastor Fulton Sheen introduced three prominent figures in modern history who have left a powerful impact not only in religion, but also in the social and scientific progress of humanity. Each of them, in their own way, contributed to building a better world, and each demonstrated the integration of faith and reason, of religion and science, of love and justice. 1. Pope John III. Pope John III was the one who initiated the Second Vatican Council, a significant religious event that transformed the face of the Catholic Church in the 20th century. Sheen described John III as a man of boundless love for humanity, who brought the world into the heart of the Church. He opened the doors of the Church not only to Catholics but to people of all religions, including Protestants, Orthodox Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and even communists. Pope John III made every effort to break down barriers and bring everyone closer together under the banner of love and understanding. One touching story that Pastor Sheen shared was when John III visited a prison and confronted a man on death row, killing his wife. With understanding and compassion, John III said to the prisoner, "I have never been married, but if I had been, I might have killed my wife too." This statement not only made the prisoner turn around to face the Pope, but also led him to embrace John III in repentance and forgiveness. The actions of Pope John III highlighted the importance of kindness, compassion, and human unity. He inspired the world with the values of love and forgiveness, leaving an indelible legacy in the hearts of humanity. 2. Teilhard de Chardin. Teilhard de Chardin was a French scientist and theologian who deeply integrated science and faith in his philosophy. Pastor Sheen praised Teilhard de Chardin as one of the pioneers who opened up a new perspective on the world, where science is not merely a tool for exploring nature, but also a path to understanding God and the universe. Chardin believed that the universe is in a constant state of evolution, and that all beings within it are moving towards a higher goal, union with God. He saw the presence of God in every aspect of the natural world, from the smallest stones to the distant stars. Chardin described the universe as an arrow flying toward its ultimate goal, and behind that arrow was the will of God who had shot it. Pastor Sheen recounted that Chardin had a special connection with small things, such as the rocks he studied as a boy. To him, these rocks were not just lifeless pieces of matter, but signs of God's creative hand. The pinnacle of Chardin's philosophy was the concept that God is not only the creator, but also the center of the universe, and that everything from science to religion is united in him. 3. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a German pastor and theologian who opposed the Nazi regime and was executed for his courage and faith. Pastor Sheen emphasized that Bonhoeffer was a symbol of the integration of faith and action, of religion and social life. He was not only a distinguished theologian, but also a warrior for justice, who sacrificed his life to uphold the values he believed in. Bonhoeffer is known for the concept of religionless religion, an idea he used to describe a faith that is not confined by rituals and traditions, but is focused on human action and responsibility in the world. He believed that God's presence is not only found in sacred moments or within the church, but also at the very center of everyday life, in the most ordinary tasks. Pastor Sheen recounted Bonhoeffer's final words before he was executed by the Nazi regime in 1945. He had lived a life full of trials, but also full of meaning. And when faced with death, he displayed a calmness and acceptance that Pastor Sheen believed could only come from a profound faith in God's will. Bonhoeffer demonstrated that faith is not just a theory, but a way of life, an active participation in the world with all its challenges and difficulties. These figures, through their lives and contributions, demonstrated that faith, science, and social action can and should be integrated to create a better world. Pastor Sheen used their stories to illustrate his message that this world is worth living in and worth saving. Final message. In concluding his sermon, Pastor Fulton Sheen emphasized that this world is a wonderful place to live, and we, as human beings, have a responsibility to make it better. The world is not just a place to survive, but a place to love, to grow, and to fulfill the sacred mission that God has entrusted to us. Pastor Sheen stressed that God is the creator of this world, and he has given us the opportunity to live, to love, and to grow in this world. He called on everyone to recognize the value of the world not only from a material perspective, but also from a spiritual one, and to dedicate themselves fully to making the world a better place. Everyone. He also emphasized that despite its difficulties and challenges, this world is still a place worth living in and worth saving. He urged people not to lose hope, but to view the world with all the potential and opportunities it offers. According to him, this world is not only worth living in, but also worth saving. And it is the duty of each person to contribute to making the world a better place. Finally, Pastor Sheen affirmed that this world, with all its beauty and challenges, is a place worth living in and worth loving. He called on everyone to cherish and protect this world, not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of all those around them. According to him, this world is a gift from God, and we must care for and protect it as part of our sacred duty. The sermons of Reverend Fulton Sheen are not merely a transmission of knowledge, but an invitation for each of us to take action to make this world a better place. In a world full of challenges, our love, faith, and responsibility are the keys to overcoming all difficulties. Let us continue to accompany each other on this journey of discovering profound values, valuable lessons, and practical advice to build a life of meaning. Don't forget to follow the upcoming sermons where we will delve deeper into the core issues of life and faith. See you next time, where the light of hope and love will continue to illuminate the path we walk.